Activated, your window into an extraordinary world lived by many, yet celebrated by few. We showcase how to rally for persons with disabilities, taking you on a journey with valuable life lessons and intriguing personalities, leaving you ready for action. Activated takes us on a journey of taking lessons from persons with disabilities and how we must do things differently to unleash the contribution persons with disabilities can and must make to building a disability-inclusive Mzansi. In today's program, we focus on too queer to fit into the disability community and too disabled to fit into the LGBTQIA+ community. We meet John Meletse, a veteran in the deaf-gay HIV space. We speak to Dr. Sisanda Msekele about persons with disability negotiating their sexualities. And we end our show with Emilie, Olifant, writer, founder of the Emilie Olifant Foundation, and serial disability rights and LGBTQIA+ activist. Hello, and welcome to Activated with me, Helga Barkhuizen. There is so much discrimination and injustices that people, because of their gender, ethnicity, race, sexuality, and disability, often join a community that shares their lived experiences and form a collective voice calling for change and their needs to be met. Persone met gestremthede wat ook aan die LGBTQIA+ behoort, sukkel dikwels om 'n ware gevoel van behoort en aanvaarding in beide gemeenskappe te vind. Persons with disabilities and persons who identify as queer are often met with sexual violence and different types of abuse, such as sexual, physical, emotional, neglect, deprivation, and abandonment, to mention a few. Now let's get activated. John Meletse is a passionate disability advocate who has worked with eDeaf, Outreach Deaf Project, and DTV. He is gay with all the pride that comes with being part of the LGBTQIA+ community. He has worked at Gay and Lesbian Memory in Action and lectures at Wits University in Johannesburg. Let's meet him. John has become a leading figure within the deaf and the gay rights community in South Africa. Over the last few years, he's been visiting schools for deaf children across South Africa, organizing workshops where he uses visual techniques to teach deaf sex education counselors how to raise awareness about HIV and AIDS.
I have heard such myths from many people. People who've said, if you have no sex at all, your baby will be born overweight. I mean, please. And then the second one I've heard is if you have sex every day, you will give birth to a nice, thin, small baby. I mean, I get frustrated with these kind of things because I'm here to try and teach people and educate the deaf community not to believe these strange myths that they hear. I am there to explain things to them. I even know of a person who is a teaching assistant who told me, oh, they heard from the Department of Health, from the Minister of Health. I'm not even sure what the woman's name is, Minister Shabalala, I think, who stood there and announced at the school, oh, you must eat your vegetables every day and you will live a perfect, healthy life. That's not the truth. I do not believe that at all. And I have explained to people over and over again, I live with HIV. Living with HIV means taking your medication every day. Yes, you have to eat healthily and life carries on, but you have to make sure you take your medication. And that is what I want the message to be coming from our government, from the Department of Health. But my concern is that this sort of information is not available in South African Sign Language. If you talk about, for example, being HIV positive and what it means that you have the virus and you are living with it. HIV negative means you have not yet contracted the virus and you're healthy and your life is carrying on. It's very simple once you can put it into South African Sign Language. A big project that I have been involved in is called Pieter. This is how we sign it. And this project was where we had 7 people every Friday. We would get together and we would educate people. They were deaf people and we would educate them on how to educate the deaf community further. I worked very closely with a girl by the name of Sheree Halley, she and I worked together on this big project on how to educate people. And this is what Pieter was all about. It was explaining and educating and showing how it works, meaning you have HIV. So we started with a glass of plain water and we said, this is a healthy person. Then we would put something into the water and say, this is when you first contract HIV. And the more we put into the water is the more we showed how sick you get progressively once you've contracted HIV if you are not living a healthy life and taking your medication. This clarifies things because it makes it visual. And this is what we need. This is what must happen from the Department of Health, is this education. They always have these excuses of technology is changing, making people confused. Yes, things are changing, but the basics are still the same. The information that needs to be taught is not confusing. Yes, there are changes, but these kind of things don't change. The information stays the same. I'll be honest, it's very sad. If I look at the economy today, for example, and the decline, I don't know where our future is going. Now I am working with DEFSA, and I can see what an impact it has made on my own life. And people look to me and I say, I will continue to serve the deaf community, and I will continue to work for the deaf community. I wish, my big wish, is to start seeing deaf people starting their own businesses. That is what I wish to see in my life. Their own businesses and their own organizations, that's what will make me happy. It's very difficult to talk about the life I've lived. It hasn't been easy. I've had dreams. And as a person with disability, I've had struggles. I still struggle. And I feel sad. I feel I could sit here and cry just talking about it, because I don't know what the future holds for the deaf community. How can we know? I don't even know. I just wish that the World Health Organization and the government haven't wasted so much money on senseless things. During COVID, money was wasted on so many senseless things where it could have been put to improving lives. That money could have improved so many lives. It could have been used for so many worthwhile projects. I don't even know what the government is doing. I don't know what life we have, what future we have. I don't know. How can we know?
After the break, we chat with Dr. Sisanda Msekele, who holds a PhD in anthropology that explores diversity, inclusion, and belonging in South Africa by addressing historical legacies of discrimination across lived experiences of disability, sexuality, gender, race, and socio-economic status. Ons is nou weer terug. Welcome back. As a 19-year-old in the middle of Dr. Sisanda Msekele's last year of high school, she turned blind. The loss of her sight and the period that followed, in which she had to conduct all her final exams by dictating her answers to maintenance staff who did their best to capture them on paper, profoundly affected and shaped her life. Not only did it forcibly teach her so much about the realities of disability and the need for access and inclusion, it also showed her how remarkable the human capacity for cooperation, adaptability, hope, and ambition is. Dr. Msekele, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Denmark today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your life is testimony to overcoming adversity against all odds. Can you share with us the main events that shaped you into becoming the thought leader and change maker you are today?
It's a build-up from very early on in my childhood that got me here. And I think, as we know, in South Africa, we know the standing of the country as is today. Starting from poverty like millions of other South Africans. That's where you are introduced into the world. And I think for me, that has shaped me from the beginning as to like, I inspire to sort of like growing up from the Eastern Cape in the rural areas where poverty was the way of living. And I've always wanted to sort of like make sure that people live dignified lives, including myself. And when I became blind in matric, that was further compounded by the desire to change the everyday lives of the people that were firstly close to me and the marginalized people and the people that society overlooks. And after I became blind, I had to focus mostly on how disabled people have access to the world and how they live lives that are satisfying to them and they contribute to the society equally. Okay. So that's where it all began for me. So it's compounded factors.
What can we as a society do differently so that we create that all-inclusive environment and that people don't have to wear masks and that we feel safe and included? What would be your opinion on that?
The first thing that people should do is actually acknowledging disabled people exist as not just some parts of themselves, but as an entire entity. And acknowledging that is first acknowledging their humanity. And I think that is very important because once you view a person as a human, a complete human being, and I think that's lacking because disabled people are viewed as you're just disabled, but that's where it ends for you. But I think acknowledging that disabled people are humans with other aspects of themselves that they don't want to hide in order to be accommodated. So I think acknowledging the existence of the complexities of being disabled, that's the first thing. And then therefore you'll be able to see us for who we are as a whole.
What can you share as advice to people who are in a similar situation as you in navigating the limitations and isms that are placed on people as others, inverted commas?
I think I go by the disability audacity, and I think it requires so much audacity to live a life where you are surrounded by all these limitations. Then you have to defy that. And in order, it all begins with you. Unfortunately, we're in a society where we have to fight for and fend for our own selves to be visible within our community. And I think it begins with that. And I've met quite incredible people when I was conducting my research, disabled queer people, and it's been remarkable to see how far people go to make sure that they're being visible and being made part of society. And that for me is audacity, and I think that's what disabled people have. And it takes digging in deeper and to keep knocking and to keep making yourself known, because I think if you sit in a corner as a disabled queer person, the world won't miss you. And you're the one who's missing out. So it's all about putting yourself out there. Yes, it comes with a lot of rejections. It hurts sometimes, but you have to put yourself out there because you're the one who's going to miss out at the end of the day. And insist on your joy and insist on who you are and claiming your place in society.
Dr. Msekele, is there anything that you would like to add in closing for today?
For me, what I would really like to add and emphasize, and because this is all around my work, I would just urge the society and people in power to not outsource accommodation for disabled people and making sure that they are accommodated. Access for disabled people is not something that has to weigh heavily on them. Other people need to make sure that disabled people's needs are actually accommodated within our society without them having to do the intense emotional labor to just be part of society. I think we should all come together and acknowledge each other's humanities and how we can best contribute to the world.
Dr. Msekele, thank you so much for being with us today, all the way from Denmark. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
After the break, we visit Emilie Olifant, and she shares with us how she navigates the intersectionality between being both disabled and non-binary. Don't go anywhere. In March 2003, Emilie suffered a life-changing spinal cord injury through a car accident, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. This has led to a cause of doing continuous research on spinal cord injury and recovery. Let's meet her. In her championing of disability rights and awareness, she has also been featured in several publications, including a book called Look at Me, compiled by Marlene Leroux with the aim of showcasing the sensuality, strength, and courage of 23 women with disabilities. In her spare time and to unwind, Emilie enjoys traveling, reading, creative writing, socializing, as well as nurturing her spiritual growth. Emilie can be best described as a go-getter who embraces life as best as she can.
When you have a disabling or life-changing situation or a disability, for me, by default, you become an activist, because on a daily basis, you have to go through experiences and barriers that you must work through to fight and get them addressed. So on a daily basis, by default, we do activist work because we need to prove our point out there for people to make things accessible for us and accommodate us in the normal society. So I don't prefer to call myself an activist per se, because that for me, it requires a little bit more of work. Not that I don't want to work through that, but if you're a champion, like I want to be a disability champion, through you being with me here now today, or for a few hours, or everywhere I go, wherever I am, you ought to know something about my disability. And also I think the nice thing about the Gauteng thing, it's such that I'm approachable, I'm not shy, and I'm very confident. I'm comfortable under my own skin about who I am and what I want and what I stand for. And I don't have to go out there and try and prove a point for people to accept me. I just live it. So by championing it, it gives me an opportunity to on a broader scale of things, to explore life, to be creative about my disability, my situation, to educate, inspire, another person, so that when we are out there, automatically for you, it doesn't become difficult for you to accept me for who I am. I don't think there's a hesitation within the disability sector to embrace disabled queer people. In fact, I find it mostly that most of the time people with disabilities get very encouraged when they see their peers who are living their life fully, beyond all odds. So perhaps what is lacking is the platform, within the LGBTI community for queer disabled persons to go out there and be part of it. Or in fact, it should actually start with us to say, let's go out there and be part of this platform that exists within the LGBTI, because if we don't put ourselves out there, issues ourselves are not going to be known, and people will still continue to advocate for their own LGBTI rights, excluding us. So I think we need to put ourselves or utilize those platforms that already exist within the LGBTI community, sort of mainstream or advocate for our rights. It shouldn't really matter whether you have a disability or you're queer and you should belong here or should not. I remember in the early days of my injury, and I was starting to come out to my friends and so on, my circle. And in the beginning, it was a very, you were well received and they were excited, you were coming back and they can see you are rehabilitated and so forth. But it becomes a chore. Now, every time we go out there, they've had a few, and they must still carry you up the stairs, out of the club. They must carry you here and there, and biggie, they leave you out of the, of their circle. You're still part of it, but you don't get to be part of it all the time. When you're yourself, and you live your life comfortably and confidently the way you want it, doing you, boo, life becomes easier. Things at work becomes easier, at social space become easier. I go and approach anybody, whether you are straight, you are bi, you are, if you're a beautiful person and my heart resonates with, beats towards you, I go and I say, Sisi, can I have your number? Can I be your friend? Can we do this? And we do it. I have never had any issues. that has been said to me directly, say, no, I can't date you because of 1, 2, 3. I think when people get to that point where they don't see themselves with you, it's them dealing with their own issues. They haven't accepted some part of them within you to deal with life's issues, you know? Because you are as beautiful as everybody else. Now, who won't come and say, I mean, look at me. Who won't come and say, sis, you know what? I think next week I have this birthday party, come and join us. I go there. Wherever I go, where I do my hair and my nails, I go and I don't say, oh yeah, I sit there and no. When I enter that room, they know I have arrived because I greet everybody. And that's probably who I am. It's easier. And it's easier for me to integrate myself in a society. Whether you see me as gay or not is not my problem. If I'm in my chinos, my men's clothes, and I look as butch as I can look, but you don't see that, it's okay. I won't tell you, I will show you who I am, and I will be who I am. Mina, I'm not that activist that go out there and because sometimes in breaking barriers also, you don't want to just always point out what is not working and complain about it. When you're out there and you help in the process in terms of integration, it becomes better.
Emilie Olifant kon opgegee het op die lewe die dag toe sy die vermoë om te loop verloor het na 'n grieongeluk in 2012. Maar die voormalige JSE werknemer wat die grootste deel van haar lewe spandeer het om 'n indrukwekkende korporatiewe CV op te bou, het nie haar gestremdheid in haar pad laat staan nie. In plaas daarvan het Emilie meer krag en moed gevind om dinge te doen waartoe sy nooit gedink het sy in staat is nie. Bly veilig tot volgende week, selfde plek, selfde tyd, only on SABC2, you belong. Join, like and share Activated on Facebook.